All right, Mercury and Taurus. These people, they talk, but they're more so thinkers, and they do for themselves too. They think about their feelings, and they ask, am I, you know, too much thinking about my feelings? Can I stand to, you know, ask some questions, you know, or am I just gonna keep to myself and do what I do and not let anybody else in my head, not let anybody else, you know, be around me. You know, I can come to them, or I want people to come to me. I want to hear what other people have to say more with this Mercury placement. I'm willing to sit down and hear what other people are talking about. Like, what the fuck are these people talking about? Like, you might just pull up somewhere and just be like, sit down and just be there. And while you're there, right, you're thinking about what is being said. Do I agree with those people, or do I not agree with those people? Are these people worth me, like, even talking to? Giving my input on, what they're talking about. These animals, may not need my input, and I'm fine with that. Or, when you have something to say, right? Because, like, you ain't a person that likes to, talk. And you do talk with, about what you've done. You don't talk about what other people have done. You don't do that. To my knowledge, to what I know, is what these people would say. I've done this, and people, kind of see you as a person that, sees things for what they are, so they can come to you for, like, good judgment calls. Like, somebody who, wants to know what they should do next may come to you because they see you as a cool, calm, collected thinker. And then you give them, an opinion, on what you would do in the situation, because you're one of those people. You know what you would do, how you would think. Probably won't talk that much. You're more of a listener type. Listen to your own feelings, but you also want to, like, understand. Like, you don't mind. What I'm saying here is, you want to confirm if those feelings are, accurate or not. Because sometimes when you feel some type of way, it's just, like I said, in your feelings. And that's fine to be in your feelings too. But, you still got to talk and look at things and be like, well, I have to, work on this. It might suck that it's like this right now, but I know I'm a person who's patient, and I don't have to talk to people. I'll wait for the right people to come around to talk to, or whatever, and I'll see things, my way, and do things for myself. I might not, do, extra work as far as the thinking part goes, because, like, you're a feeler, right? So you're in your feelings about things when you think about things. So it's what you want to do, and not what necessarily what's good for, or what other people may call, a good conversation, or, if you're talking about what you're going to do, right? Somebody might be like, well, that's not the best way to do that, and they might be right. You don't get in your feelings about it, though, or you try not to. What I would say here is, that person has their own opinion about it. You just keep doing that, because that you're patient. You can wait on some things. That person doesn't, do that. They want to, have you look at things and do a little bit more thinking. Maybe they want you to talk to more people. Maybe they want you to, be a little more detailed in what you gotta do. But that you want to do that at a certain point when you have more things, or you have the right people that you feel and you think are good enough people for you and your plans. Your real plans, your real thoughts that you have in your head to accomplish. and you will accomplish those things. Some days it feels like, damn, I just can't get shit done. I haven't met, the right people, or I haven't, done enough myself today. I just don't feel like, you have those days, and then you just remember, you're like, at least I'm doing what I know, because I know and that's the key here. You know how you feel, and you're gonna do that. You're gonna think about a way to, accomplish your goals. It might not be the most sound, it might not be the most, but you're doing something that not everybody can do. Keep doing that, keep thinking that way, and people will confide in you. They actually will. They'll come to you and be like, should I, like, if they have a question, they'll be like, should I take this action or this action, and you just state, like, if I were you, or not even in my, how I would do it, I would do this. You just say what you would do, and they might even take your advice and do what you do. And this is probably a person who, really sees you as a, good individual. You think about, doing good, for the most part. You ain't trying to go out of your way to cause any conflicts or anything. Even when you speak to people, people don't want to talk to you, fine. You might feel some type of way about it. You might stay closed off for a little longer. But you ain't mad at them necessarily. You just like, damn, okay. I was just trying to tell you what I saw, or whatever. It might not be a great big sentence, but that's what I saw. And that's what you do. You call it like you see it in the moment. And that's Taurus and Mercury, for you guys. Try to be cool on the corner. But you're gonna think hard about some things. That's what I know.